I read a record amount of books this year, like personal record amount of books. So far, I read 68 books, which is just crazy to me because I feel like I didn't read that much, but somehow it all added up to a lot in the end. So I'm saying so far because December is not over. It's like a few days before Christmas, so I still have some time to get that number to 70, which would be insane. But yeah, I thought it would make my life difficult and just go through each and every one of these books with you. And I'm gonna try to keep the review short. Like, I wanted to do like a one sentence review kind of thing, but we all know that's not going to happen with me. I just cannot say anything meaningful in one sentence. I have to yap. So I'm gonna try to keep it short, otherwise this video will be 2 hours long. And I will show on screen how many stars I gave each of these books, so hopefully you can find some new favorites in here. I divided this into categories, so you can just click in the bottom on the timeline which category you're most interested in. So let's go through all of them. This year I read 7 classics, 19 literary fiction novels, 5 fantasy novels, 11 cozy fantasy novels, because those are not the same in my opinion, 3 romance slash feel-good books, 4 nonfiction books, 8 horror slash gothic novels, 11 kids and middle grade books, and 1 poetry book. So those are the categories. I don't think I will show the poetry book because it is somewhere hidden behind my Christmas tree. But every other book, yeah, I'm just going to show you and tell you my thoughts. Let's go. So let's do the order I just read to you. So that means we're starting with classics. Like I said, I read 7 classics this year. Pretty average classics year for me, I would say. I'm not super big on classics, but I like to read a few every year just to know what everyone is talking about, basically, when it comes to classics. And a big one of that was The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. I was deeply intimidated because 1200 pages, but I flew through this one. This is very fast-paced, it's easily readable, it's not difficult writing at all, and it was just really entertaining. I loved it. Like, you can wake me up for some high society drama set in Paris every day. This was just a really fun read full of wrath and revenge. Near to the Wild Heart by Clarice Lispector. Last year I read Agua Viva by her. Loved it. It was one of my favorite books of last year, and that's why I wanted to read more by her. This one didn't grip me as much as Agua Viva, just because Agua Viva was like a stream of consciousness, like almost hypnotizing kind of writing. This one was a little less so. This one actually has a plot. It was still really good, it just didn't grip me as much as that one. But her writing is phenomenal, and she's just so good at translating people's like secret inner lives onto the page. I Who Have Never Known Man by Jacqueline Hartman. This is one of those books I feel like everyone should read at least once in their lives. It just stuck with me so much. If you don't know what this is about, 39 women are imprisoned in an underground bunker. They don't know what happened, they don't know the outside world, they have no memories of their lives before, and outside there are all male guards. That's basically the setting of this book. And then you follow one of the girls in this cage, and she is sort of starting to think differently about their situation here. She starts to think about why they are there. And this just asks so many questions about our society, patriarchy, our place in this world, and what we can do with the freedom we're offered. Such a haunting read. That's all I can say about this one. The Blue Castle by Lucy Maud Montgomery. This is the author of Anne of Green Gables. I'm not a big romance reader. I don't love many of the romance books that are being published right now. So I went to look elsewhere to scratch that itch, and I went to the classics. And this was just such a lovely, lighthearted romance book. It follows Valency Sterling. She grows up very sheltered and also very repressed. So she has to stick to all the rules, be like the perfect daughter. And then one day, Valency receives some like shocking news, and that is the day she decides she is going to live for no one but herself. And this was just lovely. Then I read Bonjour Tristesse by Françoise Sagan. This was a reread. I've read this a few years ago, but then this summer it was picked as one of the book picks for the book club I sometimes join. So I thought it was worth a reread, and definitely held up. It's the perfect languid summer read. It has that Southern European 19th century atmosphere that I love so much. But whereas I first thought this was kind of like a superficial book, like fun but not much to it, the book club discussion made me think different, because we could actually discuss a lot about this, especially about the ending, the motivations of the main character, and like sort of the arc that she goes through. Like, we had some good discussions about it. So there's more to this than meets the eye. And yeah, it's the perfect summer beach read. Then I read Blind Owl by Sadek Hadiat. It was sort of like a hallucinatory fever dream, drug-induced rant. At least the first half of the book was. I do remember thinking this was really good and fascinating and the writing was wonderful, but apparently the plot did not stay with me. And lastly, for the classics, we have Madonna in a Fur Coat by Sabahattin Ali. This was so nostalgic, melancholic, and heartbreaking. This is told from the perspective of a man who's looking back on his life and has made all the wrong choices, and fate has just dealt him the wrong card. So he's looking back on his failed life, essentially, and also on his lost love story. So, not a very happy book, but beautiful writing, and the atmosphere was just really in there. Those were the classics. Let's move on with literary fiction. And this is the biggest pile I have. I'm a little intimidated on getting into this, but we're just gonna do it. Sunburn by Chloe Michelle Howarth. I love this book. It's a coming of age novel. It follows Lucy, who grows up in a small Irish community. Everyone knows each other, everyone judges each other. And then she falls in love with one of her best girlfriends. And yeah, this was gorgeously written. It's equally romantic and devastating. The Lovers by Paolo Cognetti. Plot-wise, they didn't impress me so much, but atmosphere-wise, this was amazing. If you love books where the setting and the community in that setting influence the story heavenly, you will love this one, because this is set in a small Italian mountain town in the Alps. And like, the place plays such a big role in this book. I think the problem was that I read this in summer and it's definitely a winter book, so keep that in mind. But this was enjoyable. Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. This was so good. It was one of those books that when I finished it, I immediately wanted to start over just to like fully grasp all the layers of the story, especially knowing how it ends, which was devastating, by the way. Just go into it blind, but it's a beautiful piece of literature. Deep Cuts by Holly Brickley. This is set in the 2000s and focuses on the music scene. It follows Percy, who is a aspiring music critic, and then she meets Joe at a bar, and he's a aspiring singer-songwriter. And this was a great setup for the theme of male artists getting their success by stealing from the women in their lives, but it never really went there. It just sort of stayed in like the toxic relationship cycle. So I was a little bit disappointed. And other than that, this was just good, not great. Antiquity by Hannah Johansson. This is also definitely a languid summer read. It follows a nameless protagonist and she is completely obsessed with this older female artist she once interviewed. They sort of became friends, but it's sort of like a weird power dynamic. You're actually in the mind of sort of like a predatory type and you follow her along as she seduces this much younger girl. So, uncomfortable read, but it just lacked something for me. There was just not a lot going on and I really finished this feeling like, okay, what was this really trying to say? I feel like there was just no depth to the story. But the atmosphere on the Greek islands, gorgeous, 10 out of 10. We're staying in the summer reads. This is The Homemade God by Rachel Joyce. This follows 4 siblings. They have a famous artist for a father, and then the father decides to marry a much younger woman while he is staying in his villa in Italy. And then a few weeks after the wedding, he drowns. So all the siblings fly to Italy, stay in this villa together with the new wife. And then they discover that his will and testament are not to be found anywhere. So obviously this leads to a very tense situation. Sibling dynamics get unveiled, secrets get unveiled, and yeah, it's sort of like this suffocating feeling on a summery island in Italy. The atmosphere was there, it was nice, but ultimately this book was quite forgettable. It was like a nice beach read, but I don't think it will stay with me. Like, even now, it didn't really stay with me, to be honest. It was fun. Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead by Olga Tokarczuk. This was just really good. The protagonist is this woman in her 60s. She lives in a very secluded, Polish mountain town, very small community where everyone knows each other. This is like a theme. I love those kind of books. Like, the town sees her as this like strange, crazy older woman with her strange interests, and she's like fully aware of that. She's very concerned about animal welfare. She's obsessed with astrology. So on the one hand, it's very much a story about like the way we perceive older women in society and the way we treat them. On the other side, it's a crime story, because as this book starts, men from a local hunting club are starting to turn up dead. And the protagonist believes that this is because the animals are taking revenge, and she becomes involved in the investigation. That's all I'm gonna tell you. And it was great. The writing is great, the atmosphere is great. It makes so many amazing observations about just many aspects of life. So highly recommend. Confessions by Catherine Airy. Did not love this one. It was okay, but I didn't love it. It tried to do too many things. It follows Cora, who loses her father during the 9/11 attacks, and her mother died when she was young, so she becomes an orphan. The only family she has left is her estranged aunt from her mother's side, who lives in Ireland, and she goes to there. That's the premise you get, but so much more happens. There's multiple POVs, there's multiple timelines, there's a mystery, there's a lot of like family secrets, but it just tried to do too much. It didn't really come together for me in the end. I feel like there was just too much going on. I won't talk about this separately. This is the Neapolitan Quartet by Elena Ferrante, which includes My Brilliant Friend, The Story of a New Name, Those Who Leave and Those Who Stay, and The Story of the Lost Child. If you've been following me this year, you know that I am obsessed with this series. These are now some of my favorite books of all time. They are amazing. A brilliant take on the complexities of female friendship and growing up in a small, poor neighborhood and community in Napoli in the 50s and the 60s. Like, it feels so real to me, the characters in these books. You cannot tell me they don't exist. It's insane. These just completely took over my life for like about 2 months because I could not stop reading, and I highly, highly recommend them. After that, I went on with one of her other works, The Days of Abandonment. This is inspired by A Woman Destroyed by Simone de Beauvoir. So it's about a woman who gets left by her husband for a younger woman, and then she just sort of is stuck in the house in this heatwave situation with her kids. Woman slowly goes like insane, and it's a very suffocating situation. The desperation is really dripping off the page, so that was really well done. I don't think it was as brilliant as the Neapolitan Quartet, but this was still a really good read. Then we have Perfection by Vincenzo Latronico. This is a very bleak read that portrays the expat millennial community in our current society, but it mostly just comments on the emptiness of the way millennials live now, like the search for authenticity, the abundance of choices we have but that give the opposite of fulfillment, performative activism. It touches upon so many of these topics that a lot of us struggle with these days. And I think it was just really well done. Like, there's some really sharp observations in here, but like there's not a plot or anything. Like, there's not much going on in that sense. It's definitely a bleak read. The writing is bleak. So I've seen a lot of mixed reviews on this one. Some people absolutely hate it, some loved it. I thought it was definitely interesting and thought-provoking, and sometimes that's enough. Colony by Annika Norlin. I really enjoyed this. This was about a woman who gets burnout and decides to camp out in the woods for a few days to recover, and there she meets a group of people that are completely living like off-grid. They are rejecting everything of modern society and are living like in their own little community, and she becomes involved with this group of people. That's the description this back gives, so you kind of expect to be in the head of this woman a lot, but you actually get the POV of all the characters in the off-grid group as well. So it was a much different story than I thought it was going to be, but it was still really good, and it asked a lot of questions about like the way we live in our current society. What would it take to break free from this, and is that really worth it? On the Calculation of Volume by Solveig Balle. This was amazing because it's just such a completely original read. I have never read anything like this, which made me completely obsessed. It's the first book in a 7-book series, I think. I haven't continued yet, but I really want to. I don't know why I haven't yet. But this is a literary take on Groundhog Day. A woman wakes up and realizes she's stuck in a time loop. She's living the same day over and over again, and she has to figure out a way to deal with that. And the writing was just really good, and a lot of things were like really unexpected for me. Like, the protagonist of this book makes such different choices from the choices I would have made in a situation, which is very interesting to read. And yeah, I would describe this book just as really fascinating. The Safekeep by Jaël van der Woude. This is probably one of my favorite books that I read this year. I thought it was brilliant, not only because it's by a Dutch author, but I think we should celebrate that. We don't really often get international success with our authors, so I think that's really cool. But what most impressed me about this book is how it lays bare an aspect of World War II and the genocide that happened that we never learned about in school. I don't want to say too much about it because I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, there was something really like shocking in there for me. And other than that, I loved the setting and atmosphere of this book. It's this situation where two people who don't trust each other at all are stuck in this house together and sort of like circle around each other like cats ready to pounce. There's some really steamy sapphic scenes, and the writing is just amazing. Immaculate Conception by Ling Ling Wang. The themes in this book are jealousy, ambition, creativity. It follows Enka, who meets Mathilde in art school, and Enka quickly realizes that Mathilde is a much better artist than her. She has like this completely original imagination. Enka gets very jealous of Mathilde and sort of tries to ride the coattails of her success. And then a device gets invented called scaffold that allows you to go into somebody else's consciousness and see their thoughts and memories and ideas. That's all I will tell you, but I really hoped it was more focused on the friendship in itself and the dynamics in that friendship. But it was also very much focused on like the technology and the people behind it and stuff like that. It was also like sort of like a societal thing, which I was a little less into, so that's why I didn't love this book. But I still thought it was really good and enjoyable and raises a lot of interesting themes. Lastly, we have the book that I finished last this year, which is Orange Are Not the Only Fruit by Janet Winterson. I love this book, 5 stars definitely. I really like everything this author has written so far, so I'm just slowly making my way through her work. But this is autofiction, so it's based on her own life, so the main character is also called Janet. What I loved most about this book was just the writing. It is so sharp, observant, and witty. It's very readable. You just fly through because the voice of the protagonist is just really enjoyable to read. And yeah, just the way she talks about how her mother lives, it's just very dry. And it really is just a coming of age novel of a girl who grew up very sheltered and is trying to find her own truth. Okay, that was all literary fiction. Let's move on with the next category of books, which is fantasy. And I only have 5 fantasy books here, which is shocking because I'm a big fantasy reader, but this year it got really replaced with cozy fantasy, as you will see. So only 5, but let's go through them. First one I have is Blood over Brighthaven by M.L. Wang, and I did not like this, which is surprising because so many people love this book, but I just thought this was such a preachy, like on the nose lesson about racism, and it was not even well done. It basically is a white savior complex in a book, to be honest. Like, the main character was non-redeemable for me. Like, the things she says and thinks at the start are just unforgivable. And the author does exactly in his book what she preaches against, which is reducing the indigenous characters to their indigenous traits. Like, there is very little in their lives. They get very little screen time. There's not much going on except for the fight that they have to fight. So there's nothing about the real lives they're living, which is like, this is exactly what you shouldn't do. So I don't understand how the author did not see the irony in that. Also, the writing was just really bad in my opinion. So do not understand the hype. Then I have the last 2 books of the Throne of Glass series. Like, I know there's a lot of hate surrounding Sarah J Maas's books. I do not like her other books, but in my opinion, the Throne of Glass series is like the perfect fantasy series to get lost in. I love it so much. Maybe there's some nostalgia for me there as well, but yeah, rereading it was so fun. And now I finally read the last book. Did not love that one, to be honest. I just don't like the battle war elements of most fantasy series, and this was basically one big final battle. Like, this whole book was one long battle, so did not love that. It kind of lost like the magic of the other books for me, but the series in total, amazing. Next up is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab, and I think this book holds the record of book I finished the fastest, because this one is over 500 pages and I finished it in like 1.5 days. I think I read like 350 pages in one afternoon, which is crazy for me, but I could not stop. This was just so fun. The time I read it, I just really needed and wanted an escape, so this one was perfect. I do not think this is anything revolutionary. It's not super original, it's not super new, but it's just fun for what it is, which is a lesbian vampire story. Like, that's just what I wanted and that's what I got. So I do recommend this. It was fun. And then last, we have Alchemized. I made an entire vlog about my reading experience with this one, so I don't have much to say about this except that it was really bad, really problematic, and I don't understand why so many people are calling this a masterpiece. But it was an experience for sure. Like, it will stay with me. Not in a good way, but it will stay with me. Let's move on to cozy fantasy. This was really the year of cozy fantasy and middle grade books for me because I went through it this year. This was a really rough year for me, like in my personal life, and I just did not have the emotional capacity to read like a lot of difficult books, which is also why I read so little nonfiction, I think. But cozy fantasy just hit the spot because it's so low stakes, it's so heartwarming, it's like super utopian and everything is set in a perfect world where everyone accepts each other, and it's just what I needed this year. So I read quite a lot of it and I'll go through them with you. First one I'll discuss is the one I read on my e-reader, which is Verity Fox and the Curse of Foxfire. This felt very Studio Ghibli to me. It was very reminiscent of Kiki's Delivery Service, I would say. However, in terms of reading experience, not great. The writing was very confusing to me, especially when it came to like the battles with the bad guy. I lost the plot so many times. I had no idea what was going on. It kind of dampened my reading experience a little bit. So I gave this like a 3 out of 5 stars, I think. Then A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandana. This was really cute, like almost disgustingly cute, but I did have a great time. It had just a lot of elements that I love, like heartwarming characters, like a cozy place, like in this case the inn where everyone gets together, fun animal sidekick, just a lot of quirky elements. There were a lot of cinnamon rolls in this book, just lovely heartwarming time. The Baby Dragon Cafe by A.T. Qureshi. This, hands down, worst book I read this year. This was so bad, and I'm not entirely convinced it was not written with AI. I don't know if I should say that because I don't want to accuse an author of using AI when they did not, but this was just awful. This book was not thought out further than the concept, which is a cafe for baby dragons. From there, everything started to go wrong. Like I wrote a really long rant review on Goodreads, so you can go read that if you want the long version, but believe me that this was the worst thing I've ever read in my life. Green Teeth by Molly O'Neill. This was a really fun, like in folklore steeped fairy tale adventure. There's like a lot of classic Celtic like folklore elements in here. There's like goblins, there's the deceiving fair folk. So there was a lot to love in theory, but the writing just lacked a little, I don't know what it lacked, to be honest. Like the character relationships were just very bland to me. I just didn't really believe them. They tried to have like these heartwarming banter moments together, but nothing really landed. It was just not very well done. So in terms of atmosphere, this was really great, but in terms of character growth and character relationships especially, this could use some work. The Magician's Daughter by H.T. Perry. This was really fun. I love this. This is about a young girl who grows up on a magical island. Her guardian is a wizard who goes on a lot of mysterious quests, and then one day he doesn't return from one of these quests, and she has to leave the island for the first time in her life to find him. And not at any turn did this book go where I expected it to go. There was just a lot of like fun like plot elements that I had not seen coming, and that just made it for a very fun, adventurous reading experience. And it was definitely heartwarming. There were some relatively high stakes, but not in a stressful way. I really enjoyed this. It was really fun, and it also felt very Studio Ghibli to me. Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman. As a witchy girly, the movie is one of my favorite autumn movies, so it was time that I read the book. I put this off because I heard that the book is very different from the movie and that the movie is actually better. And those people were not wrong. Like the movie is definitely better because it just conveys that magic a little bit better and like the heartwarming character relationships. I didn't love this, but in terms of writing, I thought it was still very atmospheric, and because of the movie, I could just impose my vision on it very clearly, and it still made for quite an enjoyable reading experience. Then Paladin's Grace by T. Kingfisher. First of all, cover of the year, 100%, but also T. Kingfisher is just that author for me that constantly delivers what I exactly need in that moment. Her books are never great, but they're always what you want in that moment. I don't know, I cannot explain it. Like the plot is always a little bit that you're like, why is it going here? Why is this happening? Do I care? But the atmosphere and the fairy tale elements and the characters, I don't know, it always hits for me. This one was no different. I really enjoyed this one. The plot was a little bit all over the place. It tried to be a little bit of a crime novel, but it didn't really have the depth to really get there. But still, she just created such a believable fairy tale world again where I really wanted to be. It was a nice romance, like not swept off my feet kind of romance, but it was nice. And it's just always a 3 out of 5 stars for me. I had a good time, and that's enough. Uncharmed by Lucy Jane Wood. I think this is one of my biggest disappointments of the year. Not because this was extremely bad, but it was nowhere near as good as Rewitched, her first book. So I went into this with my hopes were too high, to be honest, and that's on me. But yeah, this book just didn't go where I wanted it to go. I wanted this like super feminine Glinda the Good Witch type of character, and I think that's also what the author went for. But that concept kind of gets forgotten throughout the book. The character relationships were not believable. They were a little bit too insta-lovey and also extremely cringy, especially towards the end. Like, I cringed so hard, which is not what you want in a romance novel. So, no, unfortunately, this was not it for me. The House of Many Ways by Diana Wynne Jones. This is a book in the same series as Howl's Moving Castle. Again, an author that completely nails the fairy tale atmosphere and the quirkiness of it, but also completely gets lost in the plot. I've read 2 books by this author so far, and both times the plot just gets so lost towards the ends, and especially in this one, like things just get resolved in a conversation. Like at some point, everything just gets explained, and it's like, all those issues we were dealing with, this is how they got fixed, which was kind of a bummer. But I still had a good time. Like I said, it's just the quirkiness of the worlds of this author that I really appreciate, and this one definitely had that. A Psalm for the Wild Bill by Becky Chambers. This is technically a science fiction book, so it's cozy sci-fi, not cozy fancy, but I just wanted to include it here because it's easier. This is set in a futuristic utopian world where robots have gained consciousness and decided they don't want to live with humans anymore. They disappeared into the woods, never to be seen again. And then you follow a tea monk who's traveling the lands, and then one day he runs into one of those robots. And this was just such a warm, hopeful hug of a book. And again, it was just exactly what I needed in that moment, and I love when that happens. And lastly, I have Sorcery and Small Magic by Maika Ducey. This was a really fun read. It's a gay, cozy fantasy novel, and it's about 2 guys, aspiring sorcerers. They're in school together. They absolutely despise each other, and then one day, because of a magical accident in class, one of the guys is cursed to do everything the other one says. So they're sort of bound together. Obviously, they hate this, so they set out together on an adventure to find a mythical sorcerer that can lift this curse off of them. And obviously, there's some romantic tension there. Oh, my camera battery died and I had to charge, and now it's 2 hours later, so it's getting really dark. I'm sorry. But anyway, we left off with this one. The conclusion was that this was really fun and great. Let's move on to the romance / feel good category. Here I have my feel good romance category, which is only 3 books because I'm just not very big on this genre. Sometimes I can really crave a feel good book, but I find it very hard to separate the junk from the actual enjoyable ones. So I don't really like try it anymore. But these ones I really enjoyed. So let's start with the one I read as an ebook, which is Funny Story by Emily Henry. Emily Henry is someone who kind of consistently and constantly delivers on the romance. Like, most of her books are very enjoyable and have like believable chemistry and just give you exactly what you want in a romance book. I do think her earlier books are the best, like Beach Read and Book Lovers are definitely my favorites. I really, really like those. Now they're just sort of repetitive and like, meh, okay. But still, when I crave that kind of book, Emily Henry is still my go-to, and Funny Story was no different. Like, I really enjoyed it. I read it in like 2 days because it's so easy to get through. I believe the chemistry in that one, and it was fun. It was fun. Then I have The Library by Bella Osborne. There is no romance in this book. This is like a pure feel-good novel, which I really like, and you don't come across those books as often anymore, I feel like. This was just lovely, and I think one of the most unexpected and best elements of this book is the appreciation for living close to nature and like eating very good and taking care of yourself. And I love that. I loved it. And this book made me cry towards the end. And lastly, The Wedding People by Alison Espach. And I love this. This just felt like a classic 2000s perfect romance novel, exactly how you want to read them. Funny, it had a great cast of characters, the chemistry was there, and it was just a really good time. Like, this was definitely a feel-good book. It was so fun, and like, I recommend this as a summer beach read. Should I turn this light on? Is that better? I don't know. I think this is fine. We're gonna keep the light on just so you can actually see what's going on. Next category. What is the next category? Nonfiction, let's go. Only 4 books of nonfiction. Usually I read a lot more nonfiction. It's one of my favorite genres actually. But this year, like I said, I didn't really have the mental capacity because the nonfiction I like to read is often a bit heavier. And I wasn't feeling it. I wanted cozy fancy, and that's fine. But the ones I did read were really great. Let's start with one that doesn't really count, to be honest, but I still included it. It's Essays by Lydia Davis, and this is basically a book about writing. But I started this a few years ago already, then never finished it, so this year I decided to finish it. So this one only half counts, but this was really good. If you're interested in writing as a craft or just love words and learning about them, this is a great book. Bread of Angels by Patti Smith. I love Patti Smith. She's one of my favorite authors. I loved Just Kids and M. Train. They're some of my favorite memoirs of all time. So I was really excited to read this. And this one was also really great. She has a great way of like observing the world. In terms of content, I would say this one was a little bit repetitive when it came to like some elements that she describes in Just Kids. But she also touches upon some new parts of her life, like her marriage and a lot more about her music career. So if you love Patti Smith, like this is still a great read. It wasn't as great as Just Gets an M Train in my opinion, but still great. Notes to Self by Emily Pine. This consists of 6 personal essays. And this was so good. These essays hit me right in the heart. Like I cried with so many of them. I just love when people can put their experiences and thoughts into words in such a way that I'm like, this is what I've been feeling and thinking all this time. I just didn't know how to give words to it. This book did that for me. And lastly, Faith, Hope, and Carnage by Nick Cave and Sean O'Hagan. This is a book-long interview with Nick Cave, and this was good. I really like this because Nick Cave, like just in general, peeking into the minds of like successful artists, I find it really interesting because they look at the world in a completely different and original way. They have such great imaginations, so just hearing from them is always really inspiring. And Nick Cave was definitely no exception. I really liked hearing about his thoughts, his inspirations, his views on just life in general, especially about his religion, which sort of surprised me because I'm not a big fan of organized religion. I'm an atheist. I love that he talked about it in a very beautiful and personal way that really touched me. Let's move on to the horror category, which is one of my favorite book categories. There are 8 horror books here. One of them I read on my e-reader, which was The Bewitching by Silvia Moreno Garcia. That's what it was. So I loved Mexican Gothic by her. That's why I wanted to pick up The Bewitching. But unfortunately, that one did not do it for me. I guessed the big plot twist, like the big reveal, about like 5 chapters into the book. And I was like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is like the obvious conclusion and it's going to be something else. So I kept reading. But I was right. And then I was like, okay, this is what I've been waiting for the whole time. I don't know. Then I have A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher, which I first put in the cozy fantasy genre because that's sort of like the writer she is to me because of all the fairy tale elements. But then I remember this one got dark towards the end, like really graphic and gory, which was a shock, but I really enjoyed that actually. This is a retelling of The Goose Girl, and T. Kingfisher does it a lot. She does a lot of fairy tale and folklore retellings, and it was good. I had a good time reading this. Like I said, warning, at the end it gets very gory, but like all of her other books, this was like a 3-star read for me. Fun, good time, but nothing super memorable. Ghost Wall by Sarah Moss. This is a literary horror. Even though it's short, this one will stay with you. This is about Sylvie, and her father took her and her mom on a sort of like experiential archaeology situation where they go camping in the summer and pretend they live in the Iron Age. But the father is abusive, he's very controlling. And on this excursion, there's also other students, and Sylvie meets them, and there she finds out that the situation with her father is not exactly healthy. The situation is really like suffocating. It's a summer in England. They're all together in a small campsite. They pretend they're in like historical times, like the whole atmosphere. Really intriguing. It was really good. Good and Evil and Other Stories by Samantha Schweblin. I got sent this as a review copy. I knew nothing about it. And I just took it to the beach one day, and then I got the shock of my life by how good this was. These stories are really uncanny and really uncomfortable. They're not spooky in the sense that scary things happen, but just it's about the uncanniness of human emotion, I would say. Human feelings that we never really speak about. She lays them bare, and somehow it makes for really scary stories. The Hounding by Xenobi Purvis. This was one of my most anticipated reads of the year, and I was a little bit disappointed by it. It's basically a historical virgin suicide. It's about a group of sisters that live in this small, judgy town, and at some point, rumors start that these sisters turn into dogs at night. And it's basically all about patriarchy. It's about how women are viewed when they are not adhering to societal expectations. And I don't know, it just didn't really bring anything new for me. Like, I feel like I've read this story already so many times. Then I have Hackstone by Sinead Gleason. This was probably also one of the most disappointing reads of the year. It promises a island where a female cult lives, and the protagonist of this book is commissioned by this female cult to make an artwork for them. So you expect her to become like involved in this cult, discover things she shouldn't, tensions rise, and that is basically what happens. But it's like such a small part of the story, and just so uninterestingly done. Like, I was so uninterested this whole book. Like, I just want to read a book about a female cult where things go batshit crazy, and I just haven't found the book yet. If you know one of those, let me know, because I am on the lookout, and so far all the books like that I've tried that promised me that were not giving. So this will go. Then I have Hollow by B. Catling. This was such a weird ride. This book is based on the Garden of Earthly Delights, the painting by, what's his name? Bosch. So basically this book is a religious tapestry and a horror novel, and I cannot possibly explain what this is about. I wouldn't know where to begin to try. But this was a ride. If you're interested in those type of books that are just completely strange, you have no idea what's happening, but the writing is gorgeous and you feel the nastiness of this middle-aged time where everyone's obsessed with religion, this is your book. And lastly in this category, The Unworthy by Agustina Basterica. Again, a little bit disappointing. The horror books have been disappointing me this year. This is a sort of dystopian book where there was a climate catastrophe and a lot of people have died, and you follow this character that lives in this sacred sisterhood, which is like a group of survivors, and they basically started a strange cult that is extremely abusive. And you basically follow a protagonist who is starting to ask questions. She's like, why am I here? Why can I not remember my life before the Sacred Sisterhood, and what happens when you become enlightened? Which sounds really interesting, but again, I feel like this is a book I've read before. It was a little bit like I Would Have Never Known Man, but a more like gory version. And ultimately, it fell a little flat for me. Like at the end, I was like, okay, what was the conclusion of this story? So yeah, I don't know, this disappointed me a little. That was horror. Now on to the very last category, which is kids and middle grade books. Here we go. Let's first go through the ones that I don't have here physically. The first one is Lampje. I lent that one to my sister. It's a Dutch children's book, so I'll keep it short. But it was a Gothic retelling of The Little Mermaid in a children's novel, and it was absolutely wonderful. Cannot recommend enough. Then two books I read on my e-reader. They're both in the same series. The Vanderbakers of 141st Street and The Vanderbakers and the Hidden Garden. This book series centers around a family that live in a brownstone building in New York together. They have a very close community in like their street. Everyone knows everyone. And in the first book, they get a notice that they have to leave their house before Christmas. And the kids decide to do everything to convince their landlord to not kick them out. And this book series was just lovely. I just wanted to read something really lighthearted, and it definitely delivered. If you have a kid around the age of like 8, 9, 10, I think they will love this book series. I did too as an adult, but just saying. It was just really heartwarming. Moving on with the fictional books. The Undead Fox of Deadwood Forest by Aubrey Hartman. And this was a beautiful book about grief, moving on, and letting go our hold of things that no longer suit us. Yeah, just really wonderful and really sad. Green Glass House by Kate Milford. This is a middle grade mystery novel. It's set in a smuggler's inn. This was really fun, really cute, and a perfect book to read around those weird days of Christmas. Like, just cozy up with this next to the fire. Perfect. Then I have a graphic novel, Witchcraft, A Graphic History. I think this is a children's book. It really felt like one, at least. And it tells the story of Biddy Early, which is a known witch from history, I think, and how she takes on a young apprentice in this town where everyone is definitely scared of Biddy. And I don't know, this was okay. Like, the art, gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. I really liked it. I just feel like the story was a little bit basic, but then again, if it's a children's book, that would completely make sense. And then I think this would be a lovely book to read. But for me, as someone who has read so many books on witchcraft already, there was not much in here, I would say. One of my favorite discoveries of this year, thanks to my friend Leora, who always said she was obsessed with this series, and I finally listened, the Nevermore series by Jessica Townsend. This is one of the best things ever. If you want to feel like a 12-year-old kid again who's like hiding under the covers in the evening, trying to get a few extra more pages in without your parents noticing, that's how these books made me feel. I just couldn't stop reading. The world was so whimsical and quirky and heartwarming and magical. Like, this really made me feel like reading the Harry Potter series for the first time. And that's the best feeling, like discovering a whole new world that has a whole series. Love these books, and I'm going to reread them so often. Every time I just need to feel good, I will pick these up. And lastly, Krekel by Annette Schaap, which is also a Dutch children's book. It's the same author as Lampje, which I mentioned before. Again, because it's Dutch, I'll keep it short. Didn't love this one as much as Lampje. It was still very cute and imaginative, but the plot was a little bit too much all over the place for me. Oh my god, we're done. I cannot tell you how happy I am that I got through this. It was a lot more work than I thought it was going to be, but it was really fun to really physically go through all the books I've read this year. I feel like a little proud that I read this much. But yeah, these were all the books I read this year. It was a great reading year, to be honest, and I'm really excited for everything that's to come next year. I just want to thank you for being here on my channel this year. I don't know if this is going to be my last video of the year, but if it is, I just want to take a moment to thank you. My channel grew so much this year, and I really started putting more effort into being consistent on here, and I think it worked pretty well. Thank you for being here, watching my videos. I hope you are having a lovely December, and I wish you all the best for New Year. I wish you a lot of great new reads for the new year. Also, let me know what your favorites of this year was. I'm really curious. Maybe I can put them on my list for 2026. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye!